Part 2. Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity. The Inception of Light. U.S. Declaration of Independence and Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity, St. Germain, 4th July, 2022. Energetic Alignment. 4th of July, 2022, at 10:40 a.m. Anchored in London, United Kingdom. Today, the 4th of July, 2022, there is a need to expand the truth of universal consciousness and natural law beyond the borders of America, and to envelop the people of the whole world who deserve the same rights equally to live a God life, where freedom and the pursuit of happiness is the whole of humanity's right equally. Founded upon the premise of human rights, liberty, and freedom to say how they wish to be governed via the democratic values, and where no private agendas are exercised by those who would believe otherwise. The United States of America's Declaration of Independence and its inherent and innate truth of such natural and universal laws, as defined in short, is superimposed herein. Quoted verbatim from the U.S. Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive at these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to produce new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. End excerpt. While these facts were presented to a candid world back in 1776, today the definition of what or who is God was never addressed then. And even today, by your churches, which remain under a huge misperception of what they want humanity to believe. That is, to find your salvation, you have to give your power away to something or someone externally of yourself. You have been deceived that you are sinners and would be damned forever in hell. These things are such an untruth and have kept humanity suppressed and in denial of God for millennia. The word sin has no such meaning suggested or implied. Sin is a word that has attached to it more negativity in the world of religion compared to what it truly means in its metaphysical definition. Sin simply means the blockage or limitation of light, or the inability to work with divine grace and the light body, or the light of God within. These terms denote the triumph over the self-serving earthly side of life as the ego personality. So think about how this word sin, in its religious context, has not served humanity in any way other than that of the denial in which we innately are, God-free beings. God is hereby defined, and not to be misconstrued as a personage or entity in the representation of the Godhead, as the term is commonly used within organized religions. The eternal, infinite, and divine source of creation can only be found deeply within the self, the inner spiritual source. This is referred to as the inner Christos or Christ, the God within, the I Am presence that is dedicated to the divine love, truth, harmony, joy, divine justice, abundance for all, perfect health, well-being of one's life. In comprehending the proper context for the use of the word God and to begin to explore the deeper meaning is to dedicate oneself to seeking the truth in all matters in life, to develop purity of heart and purity of mind through dedicated self-inquiry, and to remember the truth beyond all fear. The result is divine happiness. Thus, truth seekers are sacred in universal law. They are supremely protected by God's truth. But God is not in truth any personage in physical form, but rather a state of beingness, a higher universal consciousness that is grounded in a physical plane of existence for the glory, victory, and freedom of humanity. The beauty of becoming God consciousness, also known as Christ consciousness in matter, is spirit in matter. Religions of today all have the essence of this truth within them. But the full God consciousness can only be open to a human being when the cosmic and universal laws are understood and followed, without exception, as Jesus the Christ demonstrated to humanity in his time upon the earth. God is the only authority, the only governing power, because it is just and unconditional. That is why the free will of humanity must be allowed, so that mankind can understand what authority means in their own lives. The law of authority gives everyone, without exception, that power. But the failings and liabilities and accountability come to those who misuse such power, as free will and human authority in this sense are one and the same. The law of authority states that whoever is liable has the authority, and to the degree of that liability, the degree of authority should be given. The author of an action or work who is liable for that work has the authority over that work to make use of it as he or she wishes. This awareness suggests that the law of authority is the law which states that wherein the entity who is capable of accepting the responsibility for an act is worthy of having the authority to enact that act and to initiate that act. This awareness indicates the entity who has the authority must be ready to accept the responsibility for the authorization of that act. However, there are many entities who want authority, but who do not accept responsibility that follows the authority they seek. They want to express themselves and have the authority over their lives, yet they wish to avoid the consequences of their actions. One cannot have it both ways. While those who take on their rights to have authority are justified by universal law, but without being responsible and liable for all thoughts words, or actions, then they are unjust and must become accountable for all their miscreations and misconstrued self-aggrandizement and self-importance. The Declaration of Independence was, then, a just authority that was created for the greatest good of all concerned. However, the misunderstanding of the truth of the universal laws of God and the personage of God, instead of the universal consciousness, has allowed for the lack of the acceptance of responsibility within that cause by those who have become involved in such a cause over the past 246 years. It can be seen all over the world today how this consciousness has risen unchecked, given more and more power to those who have united in opposition against the universal laws of God, and resulting with the intensity of suffering as the masses of humanity continue to experience. But I tell you this, the reality of all that you are remains utterly changeless and pure. You are as the sky through which all clouds dance and play. Your literal moment-to-moment experience, even in the moment when you think you are only a separate self because of decisions made yesterday, even that can be allowed, can be trusted, can be appreciated, can be witnessed from the spaciousness of the sky that can embrace each cloud from a place of perfect knowing. So, stop beating yourselves up because you think you have done something wrong, not achieved a goal yet to date, not doing enough to be of service to the world and God. Stop telling yourself you are less than you are, for these are only things held in separation. Become the observer, not the victim, and you will see all this with greater clarity. There can be no greater joy than to arrive in each moment with nothing to be acquired, nothing to be accomplished, and nothing to be resisted. When resistance has been released through the simple choice to release it, you will discover and know that in reality there is only ever God. You are that God life, nothing less. The U.S. Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution remain milestones and monumental innovations, and will remain forever historical significances. They have changed the world forever, for without them this declaration and a true Constitution divinely aligned to God would never have been possible in the shortest time. It could not have happened before now, because the human consciousness of the people, not just America, but the world, had fallen asleep and had to be awakened by such a height of false authority run amok, to the brink of destroying a whole human race. Had they not woken, well, let it be said, they were always destined to awaken, for this is a destination for this human race. Jesus the Christ, in his letter 8, stated, I quote, "If you are truly on the upward path to the highest spiritual dimensions, your road will be characterized by moments of bright, clear-sighted self-inspection and self-realization, followed frequently by self-loathing. This dark and painful feeling is the magnetic emotion in reverse. Where before the ego clung to its essential vision of itself as being the greatest, and even greater than others, it now begins to glimpse the agonizing fact that perhaps it is not only slightly but very imperfect. Any person reaching this spiritual level of development will find that they are now traveling the road to true humility. Take heart knowing this. When you find this happening to you, you are now pushing away the debris of past erroneous beliefs about yourself and those who have held their beliefs over you and this illusory state of consciousness. Remember, it is your intention or motivation or conviction which gives creative power, the power of universal consciousness to do whatever you want to do. The moment that you desire with all your heart to reverse your normal trend in your magnetic emotional patterns, you have set this process in motion. If you clearly define the goals you wish to achieve and keep them ever before your vision of the future for yourself, your children, and others, in writing or in mind, very shortly you will discover that the desired changes have taken place in your consciousness. When this happens, you will feel a lightness in spirit and will have moments of pure joy. You will be proving that the truth of being does bring captive hearts into the perfect freedom of spiritual living. Whatever man profoundly believes him or herself to be, good or bad, that he or she becomes. Whatever man or woman fears others will do to him or her, so they will do. Whatever man or woman hopes that others will do to him or her, he or she must first do to them, since he or she is then creating a consciousness pattern that will return to bless him or her to the extent he or she has blessed others. Whatever disease or virus man or woman dreads or fears, so will he or she become prey to, for he or she will have created a consciousness pattern of the very thing he or she least wants to experience. Your universe is cause and effect made visible. This is an undeviating principle of existence. If there are instances of deviations, such as paranormal experiences or instantaneous healings, the average person exclaims in astonishment, and science refuses to believe that such a thing is possible. As these explanations deepen, you will eventually understand how such deviations take place, logically and effectually. In other words, such deviations occur according to natural spiritual laws and always serve a necessary purpose. Whatever is sent forth from man's or woman's mind and heart returns to him or her in due course in some form or another. But remember that like always breeds like. Strongly held emotional thoughts are consciousness seeds planted within a man's or woman's own orbit of consciousness. These will grow, bearing a like harvest for his or her reaping. These are the fruits of free will. There is no way that man or woman may escape what he or she thinks, says, or does. For he or she is born of divine creative consciousness power and is likewise creative in his or her imagining. Those who long for good for themselves must first give it to others. Let their very existence be a blessing to others. When such people are in harmony with all others, they are then perfectly attuned to the universal creative consciousness power, and they are brought into the flow of the Father's nature, which is growth, perfection, nourishment, physical, mental, spiritual, healing, fulfillment of need, and within a system of law and order where freedom, liberty, and prosperity exist. When the Christ came to earth 2,000 years ago as the living example of human potential, he came to give you freedom. He came to bring you life more abundant. The secret of your tiredness, exhaustion, inconsistency, instability, fear, despair, depression lies in your magnetic emotional bonding, rejection, responses to life, and the subconscious patterns which sometimes take over and project you into situations you never intended to create. Because of these natural impulses of individuality, you are certainly not free. You are under the control of the magnetic emotional bondage, both in your conscious and unconscious mind. You live in the grip of the ego, which has given you individuality and bound you in fetters of emotional responses to life. According to your receptivity and freedom from magnetic bonding rejection impulses, a little of the divine nature of being, the natural laws of the Father's creative consciousness, is absorbed by your present consciousness vibrational frequencies, which then experience a strong sense of upliftment. Therefore, it should be clear to you that as you unload your earthly consciousness of its emotional bondage by mentally/emotionally rejecting the patterns of emotional thought you perceive to be out of harmony with divine love, so will you become more and more aware of higher inspiration flooding into your mind, even your solar plexus, giving you guidance in times of need when you are unable to perceive the right course of action or unable to clear yourself of emotional ego thinking when reacting to a troublesome situation. With the help of higher Christ consciousness, you can live in two dimensions, that of the physical world in which your body resides, bringing you your experiences, and that of the higher standpoint of Christ consciousness, which will enable you to transcend the ego thinking and radiate thoughts and feelings into your situations from that state of being, the kingdom of heaven. From the book, The Christ Returns, Speaks His Truth, Articles and Letters. None of this is about religious beliefs, for unconditional love supersedes all man-made religious doctrines. There remains much truth within such doctrines, but all religions have been tainted over time by the lower consciousness of mankind. The Declaration of Independence was granted, given by dispensation to the people of America for a divine purpose, and it became a part of the consciousness of their time. It grew and developed the awareness that created the U.S. Constitution, another grant in accordance with divine will. The Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity is for the people of the world's conscious awareness today, and it is why the true Constitution and I Am One World Nation had to attain the great truth of the reality of who you are in the presence of the Father's creative consciousness power, so it could be shared more openly. And these two are the result of higher universal conscious grants and dispensations through divine will. Had the Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity been given before the true Constitution, it would hold no substance to qualify its presentation to the expanding humanity of today. There are millions of people now awaiting this new declaration to know that they are already free. They just cannot see it yet. Humanity was not ready in 1776 or 1787 for what this Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity or true Constitution contains today, in terms of higher consciousness. Humanity was not yet ready to raise themselves out of the old consciousness of ego personality control into a new life of harmlessness, freedom, liberty, and happiness. The purpose of this declaration is to awaken the slumbering awareness within humanity's mass conscious mind back to the truth of one's connections to the universal consciousness and natural laws that have power and authority to change lives forever. It is, therefore, absolutely that this Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity be divinely light-incepted upon this blessed 246th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. For this links energetically the principles within both, yet told from a completely different level of awareness. And likewise, the true Constitution and I Am One World Nation was aligned energetically through divine will to the U.S. Constitution. For while these two constitutions are also inherent of the truth of God, they too had to be addressed in different levels of awareness based upon the rationale by the mass consciousness of the day. What if you were to realize that the very life you are living is the experience of that which has flowed toward you from the universal God-conscious creative mind power? Since that realization from where the moment you decided, I've got to awaken here. What if everything was being directly sent to you of your Father? Because your Father knows what is necessary to unravel within your consciousness, that which will allow you to awaken enough to remove the veil of consciousness that has kept you in limitation for so long? What if the very things you are resisting are the very stepping stones to your homecoming? What if you achieved a maturity along this pathway in which you are finally willing to let things be just as they are? Nothing is by chance, and nothing that you experience has not been given to you as an opportunity to awaken the moment you self-realize it. And what if it was necessary to be given what may appear to you to be of such menial task to you? You simply took a deep breath and said, Father, you know the way home for me, and therefore began sweeping. And then up into the mind comes the thought, oh my God, I won't be recognized. I won't stand out. Or, this is not what I wish, nor the way I see my service to God. People won't think I'm special if I'm just a street sweeper. And then you recognize, aha, no wonder my Father wants me to do this. I've got to flush this out so that I can look at it, identify from it, and learn to be the presence of love in the sweeping of the street. For in truth, I tell you, the least of these things among you, according to your perception, is already equal to the greatest of all services to God and His/her divine plans. There is none among you who is less than the I Am presence. There will be no need herein to declare the causes which impel them to this separation, as the Declaration of Independence did. For while the outer world is seen to be sustained in false authorities by such things, this Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity, one must begin to divinely feel and understand that life is only about divine love and the expressions of this alone. Not to get caught up in the outer world of torment and chaos, suppression, or abuses of people's human rights, but rather the call now is to flood this earth and its people with unconditional love to all. For the rightful application of becoming that love so deeply will bring balance back to the earth and its people through divine justice, and where no accountability for wrong use of authority will be required. Love so deeply, like your life depends upon it. Love so deeply, your spouse or partner, your children, family, friends, and colleagues, like their lives depend upon it. Love so deeply, your brothers and sisters of the world, regardless of race, color, religious beliefs, or creed, like their lives depend upon it. For these are the messages herein this Declaration for the Freedom of Humanity. This is the proclamation herein created by universal consciousness of God's creative power within you. This is the essence of how the meek will inherit the earth, without a single hand being lifted against false authoritarians. This is a roadmap for people to find happiness and how their lives will be resurrected from oppression to freedom. Every helping hand, loving gesture, ensuing smile or touch for no other reason than love's own sake will make a difference that you could not imagine until you're able to live your life in the purity and joy of harmlessness to all God life, no matter what form it takes. Imagine from this moment on that millions or billions of people living in the freedom with their lives intact. The abundance coming into your life and their lives every day, just because you love. These pursuits will bring happiness. If you come from the heart of God, they're deep within you. This declaration to God life for the freedom of all humanity is now sanctioned, authorized, taken responsibility, and liable for. That is now undeniable, incorruptible, indestructible, and immutable, thanks to the people of the world who have and are awakening to a brighter future over the coming decades and centuries. For this is not an overnight fix, but it is the truth, the way, and the life that Jesus the Christ declared when he was upon earth, so we, the people, could find our way back to God life. His promise is now manifesting your new reality. Remove the veil that has held you all in human consciousness, if that is what you desire. Benediction. Beloved, I am. We praise life and its infinite blessings upon mankind and the world. We give gratitude to the divine immortal existence of the divine consciousness. I am master of everything in the universe by the divine purity of love, and the peace which I am, and that power is without limit. And so it is. As above, so below. As the soul, so the human life. I am the light that never fails.